John Dewey is nothing less than a symbol of modern education. He was the prime mover behind progressive educational change in America. His ideas and approaches to schooling were revolutionary ideas during his lifetime and remain fundamentally important to modern schooling today. In this video, we will take a brief look at the background of John Dewey as well as a more in-depth look at his educational philosophies and ideas. When we are done, you should be able to describe Dewey, but more importantly, you should be able to identify his philosophy in action. He was an innovator in the school of pragmatist thought, where theory and practice are necessarily interrelated. John Dewey was born in Burlington, Vermont on October 20, 1859. He was a bright kid, attending college at the University of Vermont at only 15 years old. At the University of Vermont, Dewey focused on the study of philosophy. Dewey graduated with his bachelor's degree in 1879.
Dewey's philosophy on education is an analysis of both traditional and progressive education, where traditional education focused upon curriculum and cultural heritage for its content, progressive education focused on the learner's interest and impulse, unconstrained by the educator. According to Dewey, neither of these systems is adequate. Traditional education consists of a rigid regimentation, ignoring the capacities and interests of the learner. Progressive education allows excessive individualism and spontaneity, which Dewey says is a deceptive index of freedom. What this philosophy proposes is a carefully developed theory of experience and its relation to education. Sound educational experience involves both continuity and interaction between the learner and what is learned. Thus, Dewey's philosophy is that experience arises from the interaction of two principles, continuity and interaction. Experience and education demonstrates Dewey's ideas on education in a concise statement that resulted from his observational experience with progressive schools. Dewey depicts traditional education as a system that consists of bodies of information, skills, developed standards, and rules of conduct that worked historically, and that encourages a student attitude of docility, receptivity, and obedience. The task of educators in traditional education is to communicate knowledge and skills and to enforce rules of conduct onto the new generation. He depicts progressive education as a system that criticizes traditional education in that it imposes adult standards, subject matter, and methods upon a young generation. It provides minimal active participation by students in the development of subject matter. Progressive education offers learners growth and expression of individuality, free activity, learning through experience. The acquisition of skills as a means of attaining ends which are vital and appealing to students and becoming acquainted with the changing world. Dewey views progressive education as an intimate and necessary relation between the processes of actual experience and education. However, Dewey believes neither progressive nor traditional education is the solution to the opposition that exists in educational theory. He proposes that the problems they present require resolution based on a new philosophy of experience.
Dewey's biographer Robert B. Westbrook introduces the Dewey's text. Dewey's educational theory was far less children-centered and more teacher-centered than is often supposed. His confidence that children would develop a democratic character in the schools he envisioned was rooted less in a faith in the spontaneous and crude capacities of the child than in the ability of teachers to create an environment in the classroom in which they possessed the means to mediate these capacities over into habit of social intelligence and responsiveness. Dewey was calling upon teachers to artfully arrange things in the classroom so that the right social growth could be assured. This is why it is not so easy to define Dewey as an experimenter or even progressive educator, as opposed to a didactic educator, as his teaching philosophy aimed to incorporate whatever necessary to provide the best education possible for the individual and the community. It is the philosophical and pedagogical combination of these two goals which is the goal of my pedagogical creed. I believe that the only true education comes through the stimulation of the child's power by the demands of the social situations in which he finds himself. Through these demands, he is stimulated to act as a member of a unity, to emerge from his original narrowness of action and feeling, and to conceive of himself from the standpoint of the welfare of the group to which he belongs. Through the responses which others make to his own activities, he comes to know what these mean in social terms. The value which they have is reflected back into them. For instance, through the response which is made to the child's instinctive babblings, the child comes to know what those babblings mean. They are transformed into articulated language, and thus the child is introduced into the consolidated wealth of ideas and emotions which are now summed up in language. Why is language such a good example of a connection between the individual and society? Perhaps because language is such a subtle means of self-expression.
In his book, Democracy and Education, firstly, Dewey mentions that a life is education itself and interpreted it under the perspective of nature. Therefore, the difference between human and other animals lies in educational life, and human life embraces the need of education, and education should be life itself in the relationship between education and life. Secondly, education is formed by providing a social environment by a natural process, and it develops intelligence among people under a special circumstances, which is school. This shouldn't cause a gap between education and real life. An education must provide equal opportunity as a part of democratic society's function and foster attributes of citizens in a democratic society. Thirdly, Dewey stated that a person's growth is an education. The educational process stands in human growth and toward developed growth through the process of reorganization, reconstruction, and revolution in human experience. He sees the education as a designed social process to actualize a certain social ideal, and this ideal itself need to reflect various interests among social groups and be shared among all members within the society and secure democratic society that is freely able to negotiate with other groups. In order to achieve this goal, he claimed that all members in a society need to build up knowledge and insight for social phenomena that never existed in the past. And to achieve this goal, democracy is required for education in a society.
The world is moving at a tremendous rate. No one knows where. We must prepare our children not for the world of the past, not for our world, but for their world, the world of the future.